And good afternoon. This is Marcus Hanscom. I am your president of NEGAP and also your online education chair for NEGAP. And I want to thank you for joining us today for what looks to be really an informative webinar from a couple of guys, great guys over at University of Buffalo. And this webinar hopefully came to the right place. We're talking about shifting the responsibility to the applicant while reducing staff workload, and it's the self-managed paperless admissions process. And our two presenters today are Christopher Connor. He's the assistant dean for Graduate Enrollment Management Services at SUNY Buffalo. And Chris has been providing leadership and coordination in graduate and professional school recruitment, admissions, and the new student recruitment process to assist SUNY Buffalo in achieving its enrollment goals. And Mike Russo, who'll be joining him, he was hired by UB to assist in the development of new enrollment management solution software in June of 2012. And he has over 20 years of experience developing complex software solutions for higher education institutions. He began his software development career at SUNY Buffalo in the School of Dental Medicine and went on to start a successful company which he co-founded, Academic Software Plus. And he then went on to develop the graduate online application system. So he has some great private experience, and he, coupled with the great enrollment management background of Chris, is working on developing this comprehensive paperless admissions process for SUNY Buffalo, and we're really excited to have them here. And so as we go through the presentation, if you have any questions, you'll notice on the right-hand side of your screen there is a questions box, so please feel free to enter any questions you have. And at the end of the presentation, Chris and Mike will take your questions and certainly address any issues that you may have with what they're discussing. So at this point, I'll pass it off to you, Chris and Mike, and thanks so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marcus. Well, to begin, what I'd like to talk about is provide an outline of what we're going to be discussing today. The first thing I would like to talk about, what we're going to be going over, is providing you a brief background of the University of Buffalo and why we decided to do this. Next, I'll be talking about what the transition from paper to electronic entailed for us, followed by our actual self-managed electronic paperless admissions process, and kind of going over the specifics for our process, which will include a demo of our system, as well as what led to our faculty reviewers portal, which many of you will be seeing today, which actually be pre-released to what we're going to be going live with tomorrow university-wide. I will then be going over a preliminary assessment of our new process and seeing what's working and analyzing some statistics to see whether or not this process is contributing to some increases that we're seeing at the university in applications. And then we'll be opening up the floor for some questions. The objectives of today's presentation specifically is to provide you some takeaways. The first is to help you understand exactly what we mean by a self-managed paperless admissions process, examine some of the benefits and efficiency from moving to a paperless process, and to encourage you to think creatively in obtaining additional resources and redirecting existing resources of revenue so you yourself at your university could consider even doing something similar to this. And I'll be discussing that in greater detail later on. And also for you to begin to proactively participate and challenge vendors to be more flexible in the products and services that they're offering. As we evolve into an enrollment management approach, there are more things that we're noticing that we're being asked to do. We're being asked to step outside of an admissions model and more into an enrollment management approach, and it's very, very important to understand that the adoption of products to accommodate unique programmatic needs is important, since one size does not always fit all. You have competing priorities at your campus that are important to keep in mind. And also to have you take away the motivation to begin to think innovatively as a change agent to improve existing processes and procedures rather than living in the past with existing processes, and making sure you're moving beyond old practices at your institution which may be based on folklore. A little bit about the University of Buffalo. The University of Buffalo is the largest campus in the State University of New York system and is New York's leading public center for graduate and professional education. At the University of Buffalo, we have 12 graduate and academic schools. There are 300 graduate and professional programs. The way we're structured is our admissions decisions are made by the academic program, with oversight handled centrally by the Graduate Admissions Office, which is now currently housed in the Graduate School. And these decisions are housed within a single admission system. If the standards are not met, we review petitions for exception, which are below institutional requirements. And what I mean by that is we look at anybody who falls below the institution's required undergraduate grade point average, whether or not they have a felony or non-academic dismissal, whether or not they're requesting exceptions to the GRE or the TOEFL, English Language Proficiency Exam. And we are kind of a hybrid model if you're looking at centralized and decentralized, but providing oversight. We receive approximately 30,000 graduate and professional applications each year. We have over 28,000 students, and 9,600 of those are graduate and professional students. We roughly enroll about 3,300 new students each fall. This is where we were. Effectively, this may resonate with some of you, a very heavily paper-oriented office. Our departments across the campus, our international admissions office, it was a very inefficient way of doing business, and we needed to do something relatively quickly to remedy that. Specifically, there was a significant amount of ambiguity surrounding what the true application status was. Since we are so decentralized, although we shared a common online application system, it was extremely difficult for us to actually know what was going on in the academic departments. Applicants previously would submit their online application and pay their application fee online, but the Central Graduate Office was extremely uncertain whether or not anything ever came in. So was it really truly a completed application package? We had to ask ourselves that question. Documents were being received via multiple points of entry. Transcripts were being sent from institutions potentially to the wrong address with no tie to the application or no context to what program they might have needed to be sent to. There were significant staffing constraints, and there still are, and this is one of the reasons why we moved in this direction. Specifically, what was true for one area did not always work for another. We may have one department that gets over 1,000 applications that is staffed as equally with another department that gets 100 applications. So you could not implement a one-size-fits-all constraint on what you were going to do because it would end up becoming a problem for how things were being done. And we also saw a duplication of efforts. Many of our offices, which I'll be discussing later on, were essentially doing the same thing in the admissions process through workflow, and it was a very inefficient process with a lot of paper going back and forth. We also, through our online application system, have the ability for departments to turn on and off the document checklist functionality. It's great for applicants to be able to see where the process of the documents being received is by the department, but the biggest issue there was many departments, because of the sheer volume that they were receiving, found as though they felt it would be easier to turn that off. That was causing a significant amount of problems for the graduate office because they were not able to see the status of their applications as applicants. Documents were being sent between offices and often required missing pieces to make them complete, specifically in the area of international admissions, and there were significant document workflow issues. Again, this is a perfect example of where we were at, and this actually may even be an understatement. There was a significant amount of trouble finding documents, and the process itself was not streamlined. So what can we do here? We could do nothing and hope for the best. Really, we've been growing appreciably in applications, about 3 to 4% each year. The more volume we're getting, the worse it was going to get. So doing nothing and hoping for the best, it's really not going to improve. We could, as we've talked about before, centralize graduate admissions, which could entail the purchasing of scanners and the amount of staff to handle that and redistribute staff. However, the problem with that is it's extremely costly and it cannot be done in an efficient manner. The next idea was to improve our instructions and force units to turn on the checklist receipt. You're not going to circumvent the staffing issues that you're still having to be able to accommodate that volume. So we had to think out of the box. So what we thought of, based upon an idea that we had gotten from another university, and this is the trend that we've noticed, is that many universities are moving towards a process to increase transparency while shifting the responsibility of the applicant. It's a self-managed process. And we decided to implement this by this going paperless process within the confines of our existing application. Our existing online application, GradNet, was a concept that was developed in our own School of Dental Medicine. It was written from an academic perspective. It allows us to enforce institutional policies such as undergraduate GPA requirement, the checking of application fee receipt, felony non-academic dismissals, whether or not an applicant has received official test scores from ETS. And this is all done through the logic of GradNet. The product itself was one of the first online application systems at the graduate level in 1998. The framework for the system was actually written in 1996. It's a highly customizable web-based solution. And again, business rules can be written by functional end users. There's a significant amount of flexibility. Given how decentralized we are, we wanted to make sure that we continue down this road if we were to be looking towards a paperless solution. The product, after it had gained some popularity at the university, was sold to Academic Software Plus, which then eventually was sold to Liaison International, which many of you may have heard, that services health sciences applications. In August of 2011, we began importing professional school data from the National Application Services, which many of you have heard of, with the DDS, JD, MD, PharmD. And we've been bringing that data in, the actual data, which is then dumped into PeopleSoft, and I'll be discussing that later on in the presentation. In June of 2012, we were very lucky. The university repurchased the rights to the software. We hired the original developer using a portion of our application fee revenue that was generated, and this equated to roughly 10% of the overall university application fee revenue. We used that money to hire the programmer. Some of the reasons why to go paperless. First, you are providing your applicants with better and faster service. Rather than wondering if transcripts have arrived, applicants in graduate programs now have instant access to their uploaded documents within the GradNet system and the ability to determine if their materials have been received by the university. This has eliminated thousands of emails and telephone calls that we used to receive centrally in a very distributed environment. The process itself is environmentally sustainable. It saves us hundreds of thousands of sheets of paper each year, along with the cost of electricity, ink, and postage. It also has increased efficiency, and the delays that it had taken to prepare a review for documents that often occur during the peak season, and those have been greatly reduced, specifically in the area of making photocopies, packaging, and collating. You're able to now, as an applicant, be able to understand where you're at in the process with a much greater deal of transparency. There's also a reduced cost to applicants. Applicants are no longer required to request multiple official transcripts. At some institutions, applicants are charged every single time they request to have transcripts sent to the institution that they're interested in applying to. So you've effectively helped them save on postage costs. Universities that are actually working to send documents out if that's where they're coming from the registrar's office. And you're also allowing the applicant to save money on the fact that they may not need to require multiple transcripts that show proof of degree. You're also reducing the cost of the institution. Staff are no longer needing to sift through piles of mail and manually process applications, linking them up with the checklist. The checklist provides staff with an efficient way to view the status of each applicant's checklist and required documents. Our transition has taken a very rapid pace. Our initial idea came from myself sitting in at a NEGAP session at the annual conference. The North Carolina State University Office of Graduate Admissions did a presentation on their paperless process in April 2012. I was really blown away kind of how the process had worked. I thought they did an outstanding job in it, but I thought we needed to get into that game. I came back in May 2012 and discussed it with our campus senior leadership and dean of the graduate school and received unanimous support. And also, parallel to this, the programmer, Mike, who will be going through our demo with us, and I had a conversation about it, and really we had decided the direction that the university needed to head. We needed to make an investment back in this product to get it to the level where we need to be competitive with many of our peers and to potentially give us a competitive advantage as an institution. So we decided to hire the original programmer and developer back in June 2012. A communication went to the schools and departments about the process in July 2012. Our paperless process went live with reminder communications and a large group overview session showing what exactly it entailed for faculty and staff on campus. And by October 2012, all of our graduate programs had activated a new functionality within the graduate system. In November 2012, we went live with the International Admissions Paperless Workflow Review, and right now, we today have finalized the Faculty Reviewers Portal Go Live, which you are seeing a sneak preview before our campus even sees it, which is scheduled to go live tomorrow. Getting into the actual process itself, to give you an understanding of what we mean by this. Essentially, applicants will go into the existing online application that they've been using, the same system, and they have the ability to upload documents in any of the following formats: a PDF, a doc, Word document, a rich text file, text, JPEG, bitmap, TIFF, or GIF. One of the main reasons why we wanted to provide a significant amount of flexibility is I have noticed if you have an opportunity as an applicant to go and peruse, there are a lot of solutions out there that require a significant amount of onus on the applicant, such as grayscale, DPI requirements, megabyte. We're going to talk a little bit about that. What our system provides, based upon some of the linearization that our programmer has put in, it allows an applicant actually to upload a file as large as 100 megabytes. And the linearization process helps with that because it helps delay the time, make it quicker for the amount of time that it takes to open up the file. We even allow cell phone images. They can be used and are, quite frankly, very clear, and even clearer than what you see with a scanner. We also strongly discourage applicants with very clear instructions from submitting documents prior to acceptance and enrollment. Of course, not all applicants listen to this plea. Some of our colleagues at other institutions who have gone paperless have informed me that effectively the first year you're looking at about 90% compliance, and then it'll go up to 95%, and you're always going to have a few that really are not in there. And there's different reasons for that, but we have found so far that that has been pretty much spot on. It's about 93% of the people have been complying with that. If applicants decided to send something in for whatever reason, we do allow that they can either, depending upon what the graduate program has decided, they can send the documents to the department can scan them in, or what our preference, which is the default, my office, Graduate Enrollment Management Services, or our central graduate admissions office, will scan the documents in and automatically upload them to the attached application. We also do handle the eScript transcripts and manually attach them that were received from the eScript Safe Company, and we attach them to the application. The applicant has the ability to view a customizable checklist by individual program, depending upon whatever they want to show, and Mike's going to walk us through that in a few minutes, based upon what the requirements are for the individual program. So the applicant can continue to watch whether or not the documents were uploaded successfully. They can see whether or not their test scores were received from ETS for TOEFL and GRE. And it provides a greater deal of transparency for the applicant as well as the staff as to how complete the applicant is in the actual process. Again, the responsibility shifts to the applicant. We are eliminating the need to make sure things have been received and looking in the box to figure out where the departments are actually in the process. This has created a significant amount of transparency centrally as well, for us to see how far along the departments are in the process of admitting students. We have electronic letters of recommendation, the official test scores, and the application fees are automatically linked to the checklist now as well. The program Central Graduate Admissions Office and our International Admissions Office can view the applicant's documents. There is what I'm going to be talking about in a few minutes, our faculty reviewers portal. There's an assessment tool for faculty to be able to assess those documents in a more user-friendly environment. The original transcripts and documents are only necessary for those who are accepted and decide to enroll. We do not want people sending in official documents unless they are accepted and they decide to enroll. Of course, you will have people that will continue to do that, but we are trying to encourage them not to. An important point, all offers are considered provisional until original documents are received. The student cannot matriculate or enroll until those original documents are received and have been verified. We have also implemented an international admissions workflow, which now can be handled all online. And now I'm going to pass the keys to the car to our programmer to show you a demo of the online application system, GradMet.
Okay. First, I'd like to explain a few things. GradMet is a very large system, fully integrated with the rest of the university systems. We use PeopleSoft on our back end. But there are three major components to the application. There's an applicant portal where an applicant would log in and filter their application and check their status. Then there are two other large parts of the application. One is where departments manage their applicant pools and make decisions about what appears on their applications, what kinds of documents are uploaded for the sake of this conversation. And then there is a top level, a university level, where we can set up, say, questions to appear on every application or certain documents to be required before somebody's admitted. Really, there are probably 50 different setup type screens at the top level, and because the university is very decentralized, but in some ways centralized, it's a very flexible system. So when we're talking about documents, and Chris has mentioned a few times the checklist, what we decided to do when we started kicking the idea around was to tie documents to checklist items, which you can think of as requirements. So for example, for the international admissions workflow automation, every international applicant had to have certain documents. And prior to doing this, every department that wanted to accept an international applicant had to put together a huge portfolio of documents that the applicant had sent in, and then they'd have to make copies of those and then send to our international admissions office. And they would go through the paper and then send them back if there was a problem. Well, all that is done online now. There's absolutely no paper going back and forth. So the international admissions workflow and the fact that that applicants no longer have to mail in paper documents has really made this all worthwhile so far. Right now, as Chris mentioned, our latest enhancement has been the faculty reviewers portal, and it's going live this week. I'm going to show you some of the setup screens for that. Some of the management pieces are going to be coming online over the course of the next 5 days as we complete testing. But I'll start now with just showing you how documents are managed and how requirements are set up at the departmental level. So I'm going to go into the managed checklist screen here, and I'm going to make this a little bit wider. And I'm just going to pick one of these checklist items. So you have a list of just think of these as requirements that are managed. First, they're created at the university level, and departments can decide whether or not they want to include those as a requirement for their own applicants. They can create their own, or we can mandate them at the university level. So right now, I'll just look at a couple of the options now. This is a checklist screen. So for this item, I can say it applies to domestic students or international. I can say it's an unofficial document, something that could be uploaded. It's an official document, which would be something, say, that a testing agency sends in, or that a transcript's received from a school, or it could be an internal use. Departments come up with all kinds of documents they want to attach to applications, and those documents may not make sense for any other program but themselves. So they're able to do that here. You can decide whether or not if it's required at the time of application, if it's required after application. After the applicant's been accepted, and all kinds of other ways to customize this. Whether an email is sent out when the document's received, whether or not the item is down here at the bottom. This automated options. We get automated test results from GRE, TOEFL, IELTS, and GMAT, and what we do then is we automatically can mark checklist items as received, just like we can mark letters of recommendation as received automatically, fees paid automatically. So this is sort of the core of setting up for a department, for a degree program, I should say. They can determine what documents are required and when they're required, so that when an applicant is filling out their application prior to submitting for formal review, they may have to attach 4 or 5 different unofficial documents, like a personal statement or a resume, to their application before they can submit. And that's, I'll go back to the list view so you can just get an idea of the different kinds of documents. Here, your financial offer letter and the acceptance letter. These are things that are required by international admissions. So you can see over here in the list view, when things are required, whether they're managed locally or they're university wide. So that this would be the setup. And then for an applicant, let me see if we have some items attached. This is a preview of what an application might look like, and of course I chose a program that doesn't have these set up. So let me just switch real quick to a different degree program. Try that one. Okay. Well, in this case, this sample actually has a couple already attached. For an applicant, they would see prompts at the bottom of the application that would allow them to attach the documents. And even if a document isn't required before submitting for formal review, they can always log into the portal later and add documents. We've had cases where an applicant uploaded the wrong document, or the document wasn't legible. It was just a bad quality a reproduction of the original. So the departments can request that the applicant re-upload, and they can log in at any time and do that. Now, bear in mind, after they've submitted a formal review, they can't go and start deleting their documents. Those are sort of read-only for them at that point, but typically the request comes from the department if something needs to be replaced. So I'm going to go now. I'm going to show you now. Again, we're in the middle. We're in sort of the middle tier of GradMed. This is where the department manages their applicant pool, and I'm just going to show you. This would be a typical applicant list. Again, this isn't none of the data we're looking at is real. So I'm going to pick a degree program. So for this degree program, again, for the application, for the interface you're looking at, and for the documents that may be appropriate for this degree program, another degree program might have completely different documents. Everything is fully customizable. But I'm going to look at my sample applicant here, and I'm going to take a look at some of the documents. Now, the interface that the student sees is similar to this. There are certain categories you can determine that a checklist category could have multiple documents, and if that's the case, you can add more. The applicant could add more, or the department could add more documents. If, for example, if transcripts, you might have multiple documents for that. so we're looking at, so I'll look at the passport here. So we'll just pull up, this is Seth Rogan. And it's a sample. This is pretty typical of what we get from our international applicants. We didn't really know what to expect, and you may not either if you haven't gone down this road. We didn't know what we were going to be expecting from the applicants. We didn't know if the quality was going to be so poor that we were going to have upset everybody by trying to push for this paperless. But students really know what they're doing, and the qualities of the scans of the documents they upload are just phenomenal. As Chris said, some of them use their phones to take pictures. We've been very impressed, and since we've gone live with this, I think two months ago, we've had over 80,000 documents uploaded. And Chris mentioned that we can take documents that are 100 meg, and believe it or not, some of the art departments, some of the art programs here require portfolios that can be pretty large. The largest I think I've seen has been about 50 meg, but typically these documents are very tiny, 200K on average. So disk space hasn't been an issue yet, but so far so good. And I think what I'll do now is so I showed you sort of what the the users who are managing their applicant pools at the degree program level. This is sort of their interface, how they would manage their documents, how they would view them. So what I think I'll do now is I'm going to jump up to the university level of GradMet real quick. Maybe not so quick. Give that a second. I'm sorry, I'm actually on a development machine now, so I'm not sure why this is. Okay. Well, if that doesn't want to cooperate, then what I'll do is I'll just show you the faculty review features. Oh. Okay, I apologize for that. 1 second. Sorry, we're hanging on our development machine, but I'm going to reset that real quick. Chris, you want to chime in with anything?
Sure. One of the important things to think about when you're going through this process is that the level of customizability and being able to think about what the individual department needs are, taking the plunge and getting involved in the paperless process, but assessing their individual needs is extremely important because not everybody has the same exact programmatic needs of what they'll need to do with the process, but also expecting that when they implement the paperless process or when you decide to implement the paperless process, some departments will decide to go all the way, others will decide to do a hybrid at the very beginning. So keeping that in mind as you're moving forward. We are looking at, do you want me to jump? I'll jump in here.
Yeah, that's fine.
Hey guys, if I could jump in real quick.
Back here?
I'm going to go back here.
Chris, can you guys hear me?
Sure.
Chris, can you guys hear me?
We can hear you, Marcus.
There was a question about the if you could zoom in if you go back to the actual demo. Can you make the screen a little bit bigger? It's a little hard to see for some of the attendees.
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay. Well, do you want to? Okay.
Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Go ahead.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so now, nope, there we go. Okay, that was fast.
You We apologize. We're in a development environment ready to go live.
Yeah, this is, there we go. Should be good. Okay. All right, so I'm just going to jump right to, this is the interface that our international admissions advisors use to review application materials and documents for our international applicants. And again, this was all paper-based. Is that a little bit better for viewing? Is the font small? Do you want me to try to increase the font size? Would that help?
I'm only seeing your PowerPoint right now. I don't know if you have something else on the screen. Maybe the attendees are seeing something different, but from what I can see, it's just your PowerPoint.
That's odd because I actually have the screen mirrored.
Do you have a dual monitor set up?
Yes.
Because you might be showing, the GoToMeeting might only be showing one side of your monitor rather than both.
Well, I'm showing the same thing on both my monitors.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we're only seeing the PowerPoint, and the attendees said they're only seeing that as well, unfortunately.
Okay, well, what I'm going to do then is I'm just going to go back to PowerPoint and kill it. How's that?
We're only seeing, unless it's frozen. Did you guys happen to pause your screen?
Yeah, I imagine it's probably frozen because the PowerPoint isn't up right now.
Yeah, we only see a frozen blue screen right now. Let me see. Let me try to, if you guys could try to make me, actually I'll take control. Hold on one second. Sorry everybody, we'll try to get this fixed for you right away. You guys should be all there. All right, there we go. We see it now.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Oh, okay. So to back up where I was, right now we're at the university level of Graduate, and this is where our international admissions advisors go to review application materials for our international applicants. So I'm just going to choose an applicant from the list, and it's going to be again, it's going to be a little bit slower coming up because this is a development machine or a development server. But this is this form is what we call our GDA form, our Graduate Decision Award form, and essentially this brings together all the information about the applicant. But where documents come into play here, this interface allows them to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up the screen where they choose which documents they want to print. And if there are 6 documents, they can actually decide which are printed, and they're all printed at one time in the concatenated PDF file. So I'll bring that up. Right now, for this test applicant, I only have 2. So if I go to print selected here, it's going to take however many documents I have there, and hopefully this will go fine on the development machine. Because behind the scenes, what it's actually doing is it's putting the documents together in the order. So right now, I only have my passport and my TOEFL, but typically they'll print out maybe 20 pages, 15 to 20 pages of materials. And they're able to keep everything together in one file rather than to have paper scattered all over the place. So it's very convenient for them. It's worked out extremely well. Now, if I dare go back to the middle part of the application to show you some of the faculty review portal features, which I'm going to do now. So for the faculty review, what we decided we were going to do is make this as flexible as possible. We looked at a few commercial applications that do this sort of thing, the faculty review of an application, looking at the document material, scoring the different parts of it. And because of how different every degree program is here at the university. We just decided that there was absolutely no way we could do that. We could buy something that would make everybody happy. We could buy something and make 30% happy or 20%, but in order to satisfy everybody and have it integrated with their admission system that they're already comfortable with, we would have to write it ourselves. So for the review, we have a setup screen where they can decide who the reviewers are, what terms for the applicants they're going to be reviewing. They can set their deadlines. There are all kinds of options they can set. The number of reviewers who have to look at every application. They can set up their rating scales. I don't want to go through all the options, but just suffice to say that they can set this up so that not only so that the correct number of reviewers and the correct scale is used and different instructions and the correct instructions are used. They can even determine. I'm just going to go to the section screen now. They can determine what sections, what documents are scored or have to be reviewed, what parts of the application can be reviewed or scored, and these are all decisions made at the degree program level. The individual degree program can just as they can modify their applications, the content of their applications. In this case, every section is relevant for that degree program. Every document shown here in the list that they could choose or not, decide not to include in the review, is going to be available. Every piece of information on the application is available in the review, and they can decide what order those things appear in, and how important these things are in the review process. So again, just like the international missions, we said we know they're doing this all on paper now, and they're printing out the applications and they're printing all of these documents. So we wanted to give them an interface where they wouldn't have to change a thing, that everything could be done online, and that's essentially what we've accomplished by taking a little bit of time and thinking about how to do this within the framework of the graduate admission system that we have. I think it would have been very, very difficult, if not impossible, for us to try to integrate, say, all of these documents with another vendor's system. I just don't know how, how do you get 80,000 documents into, somebody else's application? It just seems like it would have been a lot of work for somebody. In this case, we distributed the workload, between the students and staff here. But I'd say that, and Chris can correct me if I'm wrong, I'd say 95% of the documents that we receive now are uploaded by the applicants, or letters of recommendation are uploaded by recommenders. I'll show you a little bit of the management interface. Once you've done your setup, but this is not actually ready for prime time. This is going to be ready next week, but I'll show you sort of what that interface looks like. So the reviewers, those managing the review process would go to a screen like this. Actually, this screen. If I was just a reviewer and nobody else, I would only see my own assignments here. And for every applicant, on the previous setup screen, I determined that every applicant would have to be reviewed at least 3 times. So that's why you see the applicant's names 3 times in a row for every set of applicant and reviewer pairs that you have here. And from this list, you can see service status. And if I go into the interface, which is being updated now, and so there's actually a header that doesn't appear here, and there's some other information and features of the screen that don't appear. But I want to just show you the core, which is the sections. And the section could be a document. In this case, it is a personal statement. It's a document. So we're showing that in line here. So they don't have to. You could open this in its own window too by going up here. But here we're trying to build an interface that is sort of one-stop shopping for every piece of information related to an application, and some of these sections are scored. Here's a GRE document. I can set a rating for those. I can enter comments. There are also instructions that can appear. So if there's a rubric being used for a given section, whether it's a document or a part of the application or a personal statement or work history or something, all those things could be included. But scoring could be different for every one of those. So the degree program can decide, what a 10 means for a personal statement, or what a rating of 5 means for, transcripts or any of these other areas. And then after, the reviewer has gone through these things, and marked them, sections complete, or and entered their comments with a summary. If I go back to the list now, they actually, the ratings show here. There's a summary report that shows up when they're done. So if 3 people review the application, I can get a summary report of what everybody said with an average score for every category. And then I can make a recommendation. As someone who's reviewing these things, I can say, yeah, I recommend that they're accepted, or I recommend that, we don't accept this applicant, and here's why. So I think I've gone through pretty much everything I wanted to look at for the faculty review portal. It's a consolidated interface for the review and assessment of the application materials. That's it in a nutshell. Fully customizable, and I think we've been working on this for about 3 weeks now, with some security updates we've had to do. So it actually came along pretty quickly, and I think our users are really going to appreciate taking what was once a manual process, paper-based, and now it'll be fully online. So, okay. We're going to move back to the PowerPoint presentation now. Okay.
Okay, essentially, is it working? We have performed a preliminary assessment of looking at our transformation from paper to paperless, and of course there are many other variables that could come into play here, but I wanted to give you some transparency as to where things are at the University of Buffalo right now, and kind of some of the ways that we're going to be assessing whether or not this process is contributing to it. If you look at the first 2 categories, which are total grad prof apps and completed grad prof apps, that includes applications that we still receive from the National Application Services. Any of those applications that are received through the National Application Services are imported into GradMet, but the departments still assess in their own systems whether or not they're going to accept them. However, the professional schools are utilizing the GradMet system for international admissions workflow. So they will be importing the documents into GradMet and then transferring them on through the international admissions workflow. Currently, we are seeing with total graduate applications a 10% increase compared to last year. And I think even the more important numbers to look at are completed applications. Of our graduate applications, our completed graduate applications, we're seeing an increase of 12%. And our total international grad apps are up 12%, but our completed international graduate applications are up 14%. What we found at the beginning of this process, at the very beginning, is that applicants were actually taking longer before the deadline to complete. That's because prior to this process, an applicant could simply click, submit for formal review, they put their name in, and then they never send any documents in. Now we're finding as though it's a more deliberate process from applicants, meaning that they'll complete their package, but it'll be better numbers for the university. We'll have a better idea about who is really complete. And we have been able to realize that there's been an increase, and we're attributing some of it based upon some anecdotal feedback that we've received from departments, but also from applicants, that this process is streamlined for them, and it's making them more interested in being able to apply to your university, to our university. One of the big issues that we saw is you want to make it as simple as possible for the applicant. You do not want to be adding a significant amount of hurdles in their way, and we feel as though that has contributed to that process. Our total percentage of total applications complete is actually increased, and we're looking to continue that. We want to make sure that this process is contributing to it. At the end of the cycle, we will be doing additional surveys to our applicants to find out what worked, what didn't work, and continue to tweak our process based upon feedback of our campus staff and faculty. Some of the future ideas that we have for this system is we are looking at an iterative release of the CRM tool within the system. There is some communication functionality within the system that we're using right now. This would include communication history with tagging of looking at whether or not the email campaigns were successful, video interviewing with Skype. We will be rewriting the entire software into a Microsoft.NET framework. We will be also exploring including financial aid information and success on offers of scholarships and whether or not that yielded enrollment. We'll be greatly enhancing our reporting and analytic ability within the system, and potentially in the future may decide to commercialize this. A few lessons learned throughout this process. This has been a very rapid process. This has been a rapid webinar, but this has been a rapid process. What I would really encourage each of you to do is critically examine your existing processes and procedures at your institution. Far too often than not, you find at institutions that because we are old school in a way, ivory tower thinking, that there are business practices and procedures that are based on folklore, and there's really not a reason for it. It's just we're doing it because we've always done it that way. What I would challenge you to do is critically assess your business processes and examine whether or not there's potential to make things more efficient. I would also ask you to challenge vendors in the sense of being positive, being proactive to make flexible tools that are accommodating the interests and needs of our continuous improvements of the evolution of our profession from admissions to enrollment management. And lastly, just take the plunge. Getting into this process, although it's been accelerated, has really benefited the university and our applicants, and hopefully, bottom line, it'll be able to encourage and increase our yield. We will now give the floor to Marcus to moderate for any questions that you might have.
All right, thanks, guys. There's some fantastic information, so we appreciate you taking time to go through all that. And we have quite a few questions, so I'm going to pass them along as quickly as we can. The first couple of questions come from Elizabeth Cole up at Brandeis University in Boston. She's asking, with international applicants, do you require that all transcripts be certified by outside companies like WES and those other agencies?
We actually have a full international admissions staff that is qualified to do that. Actually, one of the individuals is a speaker for WES, and he runs workshops. His name is Mr. Stephen Shaw. So we have a full staff that is educated in credential evaluation.
Okay. And the other question she had was, how do you convince faculty committees to review paperless? And that would be a question, I think, for a lot of us that are used to that traditional folder in the hand with transcripts in front of you.
Well, that's a very good question. One of the things that we wanted to make sure of with this release of the Faculty Reviewers Portal is that this cycle, they can opt in or opt out. The paperless process itself is mandatory. But faculty, if they want to go ahead and print off of the concatenated documents, they can select whatever they decide they want to look at. They can continue to do that. If they want to print documents and look at them in that manner. However, we believe that just like it was with our profession when we went online, not everybody went online at first, but then there's this immersion of technology that takes place. So we feel as though right now they're going to want to go towards it. So the more you can provide your faculty with the tools that they need to be able to perform their reviewer role in the process and recruitment role in the process, the more likely you are to get them to want to use this product.
Yeah, and just to add, I mean, we haven't had any faculty members complain. They're all chomping at the bit to get this. I mean, we've had people really just be so excited that they can, even if they have access to Graduate now, that they don't have to go anywhere to look at everything associated with an application. So as Chris said, you know, if they want to continue to use paper, Graduate still facilitates that. But we haven't had any, and we have a lot of different programs, a lot of different kinds of faculty. Nobody's complained.
Okay. And boy, questions keep pounding in here, so we may have to go beyond 1 o'clock. So those of you who are open to staying, please feel free to do so. A couple of questions from actually one of my colleagues here at our satellite campus for University of New Haven, Monica Mandeville. She's asking, could you explain more about the eScript transcript process? Is this an electronic sending of transcripts from the institution where students attended?
There is a eScript safe. It's a consortium of universities that opt in. It's a company that provides a service for university registrars, and our university is not a part of that yet. However, we receive transcripts from universities and colleges that participate in this service, which means that if the applicant said, let's say they went to the University of Texas, and I'm just throwing that out there, and if University of Texas participates in this eScript SAFE, it is a mechanism in a secure environment to provide a university the ability to access that transcript that the applicant has requested be sent on their behalf. And we do go ahead, we are the authorized office on campus to open that document up, and they only allow you, I believe, 48 hours, and once the document has been accessed, it cannot, but by one person, it cannot be accessed by anyone else. We take care of the individual linking manually in the Graduate Admissions Central Office, individually linking it to the online application.
Okay, and does the verification of transcripts add a process or step to your staff, or have you find ultimately that receiving unofficial transcripts saves you time?
So far, we have found it has saved us a significant amount of time. We have all, I mean, even if you think about it in the paper world, you have always had the opportunity where students may not finish a degree requirement. They may end up, and you're still going to continue to have that. So we find that, and I'm sure as we continue on through this pioneer voyage for our institution, that we're going to find somebody has said, oh, well, here's my unofficial, but maybe they might have had a doctored document or whatnot. We have to reserve the right, very strong language that we have in our application to rescind that offer of admission. But from a verification standpoint, right now we feel as though it's greatly accelerated the pace that faculty can review an application, meaning we have thought for years that there has been a waiting around because they were waiting to get the completed piece. Well, now the onus is on, and the responsibility is on the applicant to get that in, and it also takes some of the pressure off the department for waiting for everything to come in so they can fill their class. But I do want to stress that it is extremely important that the official documents are received by the university, and when we look at the verification process, it'll be the first time we're going through that this summer.
Okay. And and that was a question actually Jamie had from Salem State. Just as further clarification, so when those documents come in, the official documents, is that fully an admissions process in a central processing unit, or are the faculty involved in some regards?
We want them to come in centrally. Our Graduate Enrollment Management Services office actually encroaches on also validating the transcripts themselves. You can also think of us kind of, we carry the applicant through the fact to new student record creation. So my office has access to kind of to validating the transcripts as well as creating the new student record and handling all of that. So think of us getting them in the door and making sure that everything is authentic through our office under one roof.
Okay. And this next question is from Ling Trang Tran from Houston Baptist. We welcome a lot of members from across the country to join us with our regional webinars here. And they're asking here about you talked about the CRM capability, and that sounds like a future project with GradMit. But is this something that you're currently integrating or planning to integrate with your existing CRM, and what are you using for that?
Right now, we don't have an existing CRM. Our existing CRM is actually GradMit. GradMit has CRM capabilities. There is an ability to do calendaring of messages and putting in a communication plan. We manage that right now, and we want to open up more of that for our individual departments. There's a significant amount of risk operating the system to distributed, so we're trying to figure out whether or not we want to distribute it to individuals in each school to be able to handle that on their own. You don't want admissions letters going out in the thousands by mistake. This tool is a very powerful tool in the sense that it starts the process to create, number one, it has the official admissions letters go out through it, and it then creates a brand new student record. So we are looking to have that full CRM be opened up to the individual enrollment managers in the school who can kind of decide what communication should go out rather than having it be opened up to everybody in the departments.
Okay. And this next question comes from Vincent James at Harvard. He's at the School of Public Health. He was asking, as far as the system itself, is this housed at the University of Buffalo, or is it housed through the Academic Software Plus, and is there any kind of support for that?
It actually, the software is on a server here at the University of Buffalo. The original application started in the School of Dental Medicine here at UB in 1996. I mean, it's been rewritten quite a few times, and seen a lot of facelifts over the years. It's in need of a new one. But right now it is living on a server here on campus, and it is fully connected to every other system here at UB.
Mike actually just pulled up, somebody was asking a question about the CRM, and Mike actually pulled up what our CRM functionality is and kind of was going to show real quick.
Sure. This is our main communication tool in the system, and with it you can target applicants based on every piece of information we have in the system about them, the programs they're in. You could even say, applicants who are at a certain status level, who are female, who live in New York, and then you can design a message here. You can drop in all kinds of images. You can have sort of like merge tags for different information. You can preview it. They look like this. I didn't put much in there. You can decide you want to include login information. But the most important feature of this is this last screen, and this is where you can say, I want that message to go out to that group of people. You can say you only want it to go out once, you want it to go out every 7 days as sort of a reminder, and then you can decide when the system looks for those sort of conditions to be true for a given message. And we have all different kinds of messages in the system. We have ones that go out when somebody submits an application. We have ones that go out when someone's accepted. We have give me some more examples, Chris. We have hundreds of messages that go out.
Targeted campaigns that we're looking for a certain population of students. The admissions letters going out. Also talking about doing like news feeds of current events that are happening at the university. We're using it in a plethora of ways. It's just now expanding the CRM to include tracking of emails and whether or not somebody opened it, and also tracking the communication history. That's really what we want to do, and opening it up more for our schools, and then deciding what's the fine line between how much for the school to be able to have these. Like I said before, as we've heard all in the Chronicle before, you never want to have somebody admitting people by mistake. You have to be very careful with how this is set up. So we're going to be taking a thoughtful approach to the implementation of that over the next year for the rest of the campus. But right now, we do have a CRM that we're live in.
Yes.
So there are a couple of questions. Vincent was one of them. We've got a couple others that were inquiring about this specific system, GradMit. Is this something you talked a little bit about making this more commercially available later on? Do you have any more detail on that? There seem to be a lot of folks that are interested in the platform.
Well, we've discussed the idea of possibly commercializing GradMit at some point, but right now it's an application owned by the university. We would like to upgrade the framework and improve it in a lot of ways, just in order to maintain it. I spent my entire life in this business, software development, and I know it's more. Being able to sell software is more than just being able to install it on a server. The support has a lot to do with it, and I think that we would have to consider those kinds of things if we were to try to get into the market. But yeah, at one time this was an application that my company when I was involved with the company thought about selling, but we went in the direction of course evaluations instead.
Okay. And Vincent, I have one follow-up question. Is GradMit, do you use that as your system of record for all your admissions processing, or do you feed, presumably at some point you feed into Banner or PeopleSoft or your SIS, and when do you, what's the trigger for that? I know that's something that we discuss a lot regionally at our conference and things, that where's the handoff? Do we keep students all the way in the CRM all the way till they're admitted and right until they're sitting in class, or do we pass them over right as soon as they apply? And how do you guys do that?
Oh, okay, that's a good question. We move our applicants into PeopleSoft after they've been accepted. So there are certain conditions that have to be true, but it's a completely automated process. It occurs, I think, except now that handoff is done every day at 6 o'clock, and we don't bring everybody into that system, but we could if we wanted to. It's just a simple set of filters that we would. That's actually done right through GradMet in the screen you're looking at now. It's one of the scheduled integration jobs that runs every day.
One of the reasons we decided to do that, Marcus, is I was the functional lead of the PeopleSoft project on our campus that we actually went live in 2011. One of the reasons that we went that way is we were told that if you bring everybody over, you will live in search match hell, and it becomes more of a problem. There are still, we found that once we streamlined the process and had the application updating in the PeopleSoft for just the accepted applicants, it made management of that a significant amount easier. The other thing that we do is the login to the university's portal, the MyUB portal, which many of universities and colleges have. We actually assign the credentials to access the university's portal through the GradMet system, meaning that they are told once their EMPL ID in PeopleSoft has been created, and then they are urged to go back into the GradMet system and obtain the EMPL ID and their UBIT name, which are the two of the three credentials which allow them to get into the MyUB portal. And then for security purposes, through PeopleSoft and ComGen, we send them the separate credential, but it's in sync. So we end up having them be able to access the portal. So that's kind of the handoff at that point to PeopleSoft as a new student.
Okay. Couple of questions from Lizzie Salazar. She comes from Andrews University in Michigan. Can you give us a range of the financial investment that you've put in toward this project?
Financial investment of person's staff time, our programmer's staff time, and I'm joking.
No, well, just to be honest with you, because this application was born inside the University of Buffalo, UB's actually had it really easy. I mean, I think yearly support has been really low, but at the same time, my company didn't put a lot of effort into maintaining it either. I mean, we did every year or so we do a round of updates, but it's hard to put a number on it. I mean, now they're paying my salary. Prior to that, it was just paying for work as they needed it and support. So to build a system like this, from scratch would probably cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. But because, as I said, my company actually started inside of UB, and we went private from there, we always felt like we wanted to give UB a discount, so we never really charged very much. But it's a massive system. I mean, just to demo this would probably take 8 hours to get through this entire system.
Okay. And she had one other question. Do you grant provisional acceptance to international students, and how do you handle that part of the process, presumably with unofficial documents?
Yes, we do. We grant provisional status. As a matter of fact, all international applicants are admitted provisionally based upon them supplying their final transcripts. So they're offered a provisional offer, and it is made very clear that if those documents that are sent are not well, they'd be authentic because we're receiving the information that's there. But if there is provisional, all of them are provisional. If we decide there's any inconsistencies in it, then we have to reserve the right to rescind. But we do offer provisional admission based upon the unofficial transcripts.
Okay, and can they receive an I-20 based on that acceptance?
Yes, they can. And actually, that's a good question, because initially when we thought of this concept with international admissions, there was some resistance. At first they thought, well, we're going to require that you have to have final. They had learned through the federal government's requirements that it was not necessary to issue an I-20, that you had to have a final document. They were very well versed in that, and there was a lot of resistance at first, but they did a lot of investigating and research into this, and it had been determined that you can issue an I-20 on a provisional. But you can also rescind it if the documents are not received.
Okay. And got a couple of questions with all this. How has that had any visa implications for you?
We are moving through the pioneer voyage here. However, you could think of the same thing when it comes down to the paper process. We've had issues where they've been offered provisional and they may not have the credential that they need, and they are expelled from the university. So that can happen through paperless or paper as well.
Hmm. Okay, and now the GradMet system, and maybe this is more broad because you guys aren't fully implemented at this point, but there was a question about how long does it take for this type of a system to be implemented?
I mean, that's difficult to answer because, I mean, it started 15 years ago as a tiny piece of what we're looking at now. So I think, in terms of like back-end integration, it does have, it has all of those hooks built in because we've done it here at UB for so long. There really isn't anything we haven't seen. So as far as integrating, I guess it would depend on, what it had to integrate with. For example, if you wanted to integrate with like receiving automated test results, and or your local campus data store for any other information that you'd like to bring into GradMet or send information out, it actually has hooks to do all that, to push information out and to bring information in.
One of the things that we did, Marcus, too, is when we did the PeopleSoft implementation, we decided to make sure that all of the academic plan codes and the mechanism, and the screen that I'm on right now, we basically added the logic of PeopleSoft and how we code things within PeopleSoft and put it into GradMet so they could talk to each other much easier and more seamlessly. A significant amount of the development of GradMet when it went live happened over a period of probably 2 years. And then at the time, the company that Mike used to work for, the focus really shifted to course eval and web admit, which is used, many of the people online will know, was used by predominantly health sciences. And really, GradMet is only used by 2 people right now. It's the University of Buffalo, which has made a significant amount of changes to it, and the University of New Brunswick, who has really just implemented very, very similar to where we were in 2000. So they have not had any, they haven't really had any need to make any additions to it. So to answer that question, to get the online application up and running and to try to create something from scratch would take a lot, but just to get the online application running was probably 2 years.
Yeah, I think that like if someone were to buy this as an empty shell of an application, I mean, you could have your applications online within a matter of hours. The University of Brunswick, as Chris mentioned, we actually gave them the application when my partners and myself sold the company, because they never called us for support. The application has run there for 8 years, never had one error. They've never had to call for support. It's really that simple to use.
Okay. And a couple of last questions here. How configurable is the system if somebody wanted to add a feature or design improvement? Is that something that's relatively adaptable with the system that you're using?
Yeah, I mean, we built this we actually built all of our software for the company, but we built with flexibility always in mind. There really isn't, I mean, it is extendable. For example, the screen we looked at where I mentioned the PeopleSoft jobs, you could actually write those jobs in any language and have them automated through this system. But every feature in this application, whether it be a question or any of these other like sort of infrastructure, everything is customizable because we've had to create applications and facilitate the process for so many different kinds of programs. We've had to build the system this way. That's why you see so many options, and it looks overwhelming. But remember, we're at the university level here right now, so there are going to be a lot of different options. But a lot of the complexity is removed from the sort of end user, where they can just go in and sort of pick the questions they want in their applications and make other decisions like that.
We can on the fly add questions for the academic department, but because of purposes of making sure of security, making sure the question is legal, we do that centrally. So we have the ability to do that. And the screen that I'm on right now, we actually established the university grade point averages that we accept applicants from. So we have a process by which departments can petition. If you see these QPAs based upon individual program, if there's an agreement with our dean that they will admit people who are below that, and they can establish individual UGPA thresholds that would force the system to prevent an applicant from being accepted that fall outside the agreed upon GPA with that individual program. So there's a significant amount of power and flexibility that the system allows us, as well as standardized tests. And the felony non-academic dismissal process, again, if anybody answers yes to that question, they cannot admit them because we have control of the workflow.
Yeah, there are a lot of checks like that built in. And again, it's all configurable, and somebody might be able to come up with other things like that, but you can actually write your own rules for every question and sort of have this validation built in. I can go show you. So this is just this is the question list, sort of the question bank, and it's not the prettiest screen in the world, but I'll just go into the GPA screen, and you can see again you have complete control over the validation, the type of question, whether like a little tooltip appears, what if the prompt should be different for international students, you know, whether or not the question is required on domestic, whether it's required on international, and now, again, we're at the university level now where we manage these things, but you can decide whether it's a text box, it's a memo field, it's a drop-down, it's a multi-select. Pretty much every kind of field you can think of, you can create here, and you can create them on the fly and change them at any time, change the prompts, and then at the departmental level where they create these applications for the different degree programs, as long as the question is not required, they can choose to include it or not. So one application might have 50 questions on it, another one might have 200. And as far as from a university perspective, we don't care, because if the data point is very, very important to us, let's say we export to PeopleSoft, we're going to make it required. Somebody can't submit an application without that value in their record.
So
and again, that's all done here.
Sorry, I had a quick question. In my experience, I mean, 9 times out of 10, when I talk to a student and I ask them what their GPA is, they tell me something that isn't the truth, and I'm not sure it's deliberate, but most students don't seem to remember. So how does that factor into this process for you guys in determining the GPA?
Well, I mean, they can say whatever they want on their application, and it could be that they are accepted, based on a GPA that isn't factual, but they're still accepted provisionally until we get their transcripts. So they eventually would be found out, and of course, whether they're international or domestic, it doesn't really matter.
Marcus, when this whole thing came up about 6 years ago, because we put the UGPA requirement in there, we found in an audit that we had done that it was pretty darn close. Some of the complexity you run into in this, though, is in-progress GPAs versus final GPAs, and there was a slight amount of variation that will occur with that. So I think it's really hard to make absolutely sure that it's precise, but we do catch them on the final end when we receive the transcripts.
Okay, thanks. And we have one other question regarding the going back to how faculty can print documents. How do you control security and the confidential disposal of those documents if they're printing them independently? Do you have some sort of policy with faculty, or how do you do that?
Well, you're talking about security of the documents on our server or after they've been printed? After they've been printed. Well, there really isn't much we could do, because last year they would have had those same documents that were mailed in, and so I think that the onus will probably be on the department to safeguard any sensitive materials. There isn't anything that we're storing. I mean, we are storing these documents on our server in a secure folder, and as a matter of fact, when you view the documents, they're only available for download for about 10 minutes before they're deleted. So we do what we can on the server, but as far as once somebody prints a document, I mean, we looked at it like it's not much different than it would have been last year if somebody mailed in that document. Okay. Well, and that pretty much wraps up. We have one question about the presentation itself, if it will be available. If you guys are open to it, Chris and Mike, if you could share the PowerPoint, we can make it a PDF, and we'll put that out to the attendees. And
absolutely.
Also, thank you guys. And also for those of you who want to rewatch the presentation or share it with your colleagues, we are recording this, so we have a video that we will post to YouTube. So you can go onto our site. It's youtube.com/negaporg. And you'll be able to get it there. So we will provide that link to you in the follow-up message to this webinar, and certainly ask for a couple of comments from you and your feedback on what you thought of the presentation. And I really want to extend a special thanks to Chris and Mike for joining us. This has been fantastic information, really helpful. And we hope that you'll consider coming to a future NEGAP and NEGAP webinar in the future. So thanks again, guys, and thanks to all of you for coming, and hope you have a great afternoon.
Well, thank you.
Thanks, Marcus. Thank you, everyone.
Take care.